Dear fraternal brothers and sisters in EKV, this is Günther Fehlinger-Jan, Vulgo Diomedes, EKV Council Chairman, and I would like to report to you about our last and very important activity to go as many representatives from Germany, Switzerland, Austria, Belgium, to the 95th anniversary celebration of our member Obnova in Ukraine last weekend. It was a very special event in my life, and I want to thank the organizers for organizing this special conference, and it was really very moving, touching, concerning, and to visit celebration of EKV during wartime in a war-torn country is, of course, for all of us, it was a risk. Me personally, I was also afraid. I was living in Ukraine for 4 years, but I have not been there during the wartime, and it was well worth it. Obviously, there was no security concerned incident, while at the same time there were Russian attacks on cities in the east of Ukraine, in the west of Ukraine. There was absolutely no incident. It's a curfew, and we strictly kept to the curfew, and we have obeyed all the security-related concerns. But I would like to say that it was, for me, still, if it's appropriate to say, one of the highlights in my EKV life, certainly, and in principle it was also, for any human, extremely moving and touching. The Friday when we arrived, we were guided to the cemetery where the fallen heroes of Ukraine, many of them brothers and sisters also from the Catholic faith and from the Obnova, they are buried at the city cemetery of Lviv, and it's a wild field upwards, over 800, I was told, are living there on this hill. And if you ever have been at a war memorial, I've been to many, but war cemeteries like for the First and Second World War, it's a long time ago, but we were now there. There were graves of defenders of Ukraine, young people in their 20s, who are basically just last week buried there. And we were guided by one of the priests. I have to explain that in the Ukraine Catholic Church, where Obnova obviously is very much involved as a Christian Catholic student movement, or in the west of Ukraine. And it was very, very moving. The guide was the Catholic priest of Obnova, in a way their Verbindungsseelsorger, and his son, because in the Catholic Ukrainian Church the priest can marry. He had a son who died in 2022 as a volunteer and for the Ukrainian Special Forces or the Eastern Front. And he guided us through the life of his son, and he told us at the grave of his son how his life was and why he decided to come back. And he decided voluntarily to come back because he was living, as far as I remember, in the US or in Canada. But when the war started, he decided to come back. He was a very sporty person. He was also a parachute and could do a lot of extreme sports. So he volunteered for the Special Forces, and he unfortunately died. We prayed for him, and we prayed for all our brothers and sisters who defended Ukraine. Yet later we went to the War Veteran Museum. War Veteran Museum. It's the rehabilitation center for war veterans. And this was also, I was, for example, talking with a Colombian volunteer who fought for Ukraine, and he lost arm and a limb, and he wanted to return to Colombia, and they helped him to get this rehab in order to be able to do that. And I spoke in Spanish to him, but anyhow, it's really emotionally very challenging day in all this complexity and tragedy, and it has reiterated my belief that I have to do everything I can here in Austria and in EKV to support Ukraine's liberation, victory, and of course EU integration. Yes, there was this Friday, then we had a very nice city tour. We went to the inner city of Lviv, an extremely beautiful European city, and then we went to the Heavenly 100, a memorial for the heroes who died for European integration and Western integration of Ukraine in 2014. And then we went onwards to some of the cities, some of the monasteries and the churches, obviously. And we went then onwards for a very nice welcoming dinner. And the next day we had a very intensive seminar program with all the historic discussions about the role of Obnova in the last 95 years, which is considerable. It's very important to understand that the Catholic Christians of Ukraine were, it's about 5 million people, so it's a substantial group, yeah? And they were very, very much prosecuted, suppressed and tortured and killed, yeah? Many of them, especially their religious leaders, by the Soviet Union. It was a terrible history and really heartbreaking, the stories to hear during this conference. And then when Obnova, which basically survived outside of the Soviet Union, in Italy, in Germany, in America, and they came back when the Soviet Union broke, Ukraine got independence, and then they came back and they decided to build up a better country, better state, built on Christian principles, and they have this developed Obnova. And it's now, I think the first contacts were in 95 to EKV, and in 96 they became a full member of EKV, and it's now 30 years. And they really have achieved a lot. It's one of the main achievements. Of course, everything in Ukraine is a major progress and achievement compared to the disaster of the Soviet Union, but the main visible achievement of the Obnova spirit and of the Christian Catholic group in Ukraine is of course the Catholic University in Lviv. It's a very proud institution. They had a dream to establish their own Catholic University in Lviv, and they did it. It's now very impressive, very big installation. It was a former cultural artifact not finished of the Soviet Union. They turned it into this Catholic University, and that's very impressive. We were staying in the student dorm of that facility, that university, and the conference itself took place in this very modern conference facilities they have, and that was really very, very good. Thanks a lot for the organizers. Thanks a lot for the invitation. It was for all of us a very remarkable event, and thanks a lot also for all who participated. You know, my thinking is like this, you know, I go by bus then back to Vienna, but many of the participants, the male ones, they go back to the Eastern Front to defend their country. This is the difference, yeah. And what we in Western Europe, in the European Union, can do to support our brothers and sisters in their fight for freedom, for defense of their nation, for the expulsion of the Russian invader, we should do. This is very logical for me. We have to support them with whatever we can, and we will. And Ukraine and we will win this war together. So we had also international panel about Obnova's role in the international organization. Obnova is also with Pax Romana, and it's also in the Catholic student movement. They have a friendship contract with the Catholic student movements of Austria, of Poland, and there's a lot of support coming here. But most of all, they're a very proud member of EKV, and we are very proud to have you, Obnova, dear brothers and sisters in EKV, and we will support you in the future enormously as much as we can. I would like to thank especially our Swiss and also Austrian, but the main initiative now in the last years was driven by the Swiss brothers in EKV, and they made a presentation. It's also on this channel available, but they have collected now, it's up to 2.3 million euros, and they have really been very good in fundraising and in building a professional charity for support for Ukraine, and I call everybody to support them. This is really the 1019, that's the distance to Ukraine from Switzerland, and they are really, I met them the first time now in Lviv. I want to thank them for coming, thank them for all the contribution, and that's really excellent what happened, and I call all EKV support them. This is very important. I also want to mention that in Austria, around Austria Sakita, Merkenstein, Maximiliana, a lot of our brothers and sisters have done enormous work as well, contributed courageously and going often to Ukraine, organizing transports, and it was very, very good. We can be all very proud about what has happened for Ukraine in the last 3 years, and we will continue to support Ukraine's political integration into the European Union. Obviously, that's clearly our task, and also to support more fundraising, humanitarian, because, you know, if we don't support our Christian brothers and sisters now and our Catholic fellow Christians in Ukraine now, when else? This is the moment we have to support you, and of course we want you to be integrated in the European Union, and I call everybody to support exactly this. I was also honored to make a short presentation. Secretary General of EKV has presented EKV. I was talking about the political context, and of course mentioning that now soon our brothers and sisters will be in government, or are in government already in Austria, in the Mr. Stocker, the Chancellor of Austria, and Mr. Merz, the Chancellor of Germany, soon to be in power. And of course that this is our moral historic obligations to support Ukraine now and in the future, and whatever it takes, as long as it takes, for victory, liberation and integration of Ukraine into the European Union. And you know, this is when you understand more after going there, the tragic history of the Christians in Ukraine, suppressed by the Soviet Union, prosecuted and killed so many of them for their faith, and now this terrible war which the successor of the Soviet Union, Russia, is waging against the Ukrainians. You feel that you have to do everything, whatever it takes, to ensure support for our Ukrainian brothers and sisters. That's what we will do. As I learned also, the way to address the conference in the Obnova context is always with Slava Christo, glory to Christ, and glory to Ukraine. This is what I want to close here, and I want to add a glory to Europe. What we need now to do is based on our faith and based on our beliefs in Europe and our principles, to support the victory of Ukraine, and of course to support our fellow Christians in Ukraine, and also our fellow students and our fellow Europeans. So let me conclude to thank the organizers, congratulate everybody, express my wish to have more events in Ukraine, and also their support to be much higher in the future from EKV for Obnova, and also to make sure that for the 100th anniversary of Obnova in 5 years from now, that we will be looking back at this war after a victory, and for full liberation and integration we should have already achieved by then, for the 100th anniversary of Obnova in Ukraine. Slava Christo, Slava Ukraine, and Slava Europe. Glory to Christ, glory to Ukraine, and glory to Europe. Thanks a lot for watching, and all the best. And let's support Ukraine. Bye.